Hey, welcome to the briefing room, the women behind the badge. If you're listening right now, thank you, truly. This podcast has been sitting with me for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. And today, I finally decided to stop waiting for the right time and just start. This isn't a polished production, it's not a headline driven show, and it's definitely not a highlight reel. This is a space for real conversations, the kind that don't usually happen during performance reviews or in official bios. This is a space for the women behind the badge. And today, for this very first episode, it's just me. So let me start here. My name is Jen. I'm a woman in law enforcement. I've spent years working investigations, complex, detail heavy work that most people never see, but that quietly affects a lot of lives. I've also served in uniform for over a decade in investigative roles, working alongside people who shaped my career in ways both good and difficult. I've worked cases that energized me, the kind that remind you why this work matters. And I've worked cases that completely drained me, not because they were hard, but because of everything surrounding them. I've spent years in rooms where I was the only woman. Not once, not occasionally, often enough that it stopped feeling unusual. And I want to be clear about something early on. I love this work. I love investigations. I love finding the truth when someone assumed no one would look. I love understanding how systems fail and how people exploit them. But loving the work doesn't mean it hasn't come with trade-offs. This podcast exists because I know I'm not the only one who's felt this way. I know there are women listening right now who have been told they're too quiet or too intense, have worked twice as hard just to be seen as competent, have felt pressure to be agreeable instead of honest, or have quietly wondered if staying is costing them more than it's giving back. I've felt all of that. And somewhere along the way, I realized something important. Professionalism shouldn't mean silence. We're taught to keep things close to the vest, to not rock the boat, to be grateful we even have a seat at the table. But when we never talk about the reality of this work, especially as women, it creates this illusion that everyone else is handling it better. They're not. They're just quieter about it. Here's the part we don't talk about enough. Burnout doesn't always look like breaking down. Sometimes it looks like functioning just fine, doing your job well, getting positive feedback, and feeling absolutely nothing. Sometimes it looks like becoming a version of yourself that's efficient, but distant. There were moments in my career where I felt invisible, moments where speaking up felt risky, moments where I questioned whether the version of myself I was becoming was someone I actually liked. And I want to say this clearly. Questioning your path doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware. Thinking about leaving doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you've outgrown something. And staying doesn't automatically mean you're strong. Sometimes it just means you've learned how to endure. None of those truths cancel each other out. I wanted this first episode to be personal, not because my story is more important than anyone else's, but because I won't ask anyone to share something I'm not willing to share myself. This podcast isn't about tearing institutions down. It's not about naming agencies or calling people out, and it's not about creating drama. It's about honesty. You can be proud of your service and honest about what it's cost you. You can believe in the mission and feel misaligned with the system. You can wear the badge and still be figuring out who you are underneath it. That tension doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you human. In future episodes, you'll hear conversations with women who stayed and rose through the ranks, left and rebuilt their identity, are still in it and navigating the gray, or are quietly deciding what comes next. We'll talk about leadership, the kind that lifts you up and the kind that slowly wears you down. We'll talk about ambition, burnout, confidence, and starting over, sometimes by choice, sometimes by necessity. Some episodes will be heavy, some will be lighter, some might make you uncomfortable, and that's okay. This space isn't about having all the answers. It's about finally asking the questions we were taught not to ask out loud. If this episode resonated with you, even a little, I hope you stay. And if you're a woman behind the badge with a story you've been holding on to, this show is for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for letting me start this conversation. This is The Briefing Room, the woman behind the badge.